Peace everybody, back with another video. This is more Mexican beef headed to U.S. dinner tables as Americans supply crunch bites. So more beef is coming to the U.S. dinner tables. Fine, at least it's not coming from China this time. More Mexican steaks and other beef cuts are headed north of the border after the C-19 virus outbreak has hobbled U.S. meat processing plants, potentially offsetting fears of shortages affecting businesses from fast food chains to grocery stores, but angering American ranchers. So the Mexican steaks and other beef cuts are headed to north of the border this time. After the C-19 virus outbreak, it has hobbled U.S. meat processing plants potentially. It was offsetting fears of shortages affecting businesses from fast food chains to grocery stores, but angering American ranchers. So the American ranchers, they're getting a little angry right now. And of course, here as you see is the cow that is tagged, so the cow is going to be butchered. Certified beef cattle are pictured at Rancho Estrada in the town of San Agustin on the outskirts of Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, May 13th, 2020. And of course, you know, this is what it is. The Mexican industry chalks up the export growth to new safety measures adopted by plants, as well as relatively smaller scale operations that have so far kept infections at bay and businesses humming. Yeah, so the Mexican industry chalks up the export growth to new safety measures. So they have to measure the safety of the beef and other imports of the meat that they need to ship to U.S. In the United States, there has been a surge of cases of C-19, the respiratory disease caused by the novel C-19 virus at slaughterhouses and meat processing plants that has crimped domestic supply, leading to unease among U.S. consumers, and even warnings from leading fast food burger chains like Wendy's that popular menu items may soon be discontinued. So Wendy's has always been popular with beef, but unfortunately that items may be soon be discontinued. In the United States, there has been a surge of cases of C-19, the respiratory disease caused by the novel C-19 virus. Slaughterhouses and meat processing plants, that's where they were at. So it's a sad shame. In a recipe for popular discontent, those shortages could cause meat supplies to fall by nearly a third by the end of this month, while prices jump by around 20%. Yes, so those shortages could cause meat supplies to fall by a third by the end of this month. So at the end of this month, it's going to be falling. And the prices are going to go up 20%. Mexican beef supplies were already a growing part of U.S. sales prior to the crisis, and they are set for even stronger double-digit growth in 2020, said Juan Le, president of Mexico's main cattle growers association. Yes, so that's what he said, that the cattle have always been the beef supplies were already a growing part of the U.S. sales prior to the crisis. So they've always been sending beef up here before and now during this pandemic. Leading an industry that spans 20 government accurate beef exporting companies, including Mexican heavyweights like Sir Karen Lay, predicts up to 12% growth in U.S. exports this year compared with last year's volumes. So yeah, so the industry spans 20 government accurate beef exports company. They are including Mexican heavyweights like Sir Karen Lay predicts up to 12% growth in U.S. So that's what he's predicting, a 12% growth in the U.S. Sales to U.S. buyers have already jumped 10% this month, he said, and he expects the same in June. Yeah, so already this month it's been up 10%. He also says that he expects the same in June next month. From the beginning of this year through the first week of May, Mexican beef exports to its northern neighbor tolerated nearly 87,000 tons, up roughly 8,000 tons compared with the same period last year. Excuse me. According to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, yes, so from the beginning of this year of 2020 up till now of May, Mexican beef exports to its northern neighbor totaled nearly 87,000 tons, up roughly 8,000. So that's a lot. And this is according to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. In 2019, Mexico was the third biggest foreign beef supplier to the United States behind Australia and Canada, with exports reaching 232,000 tons. The United States accounted for about 86% of total Mexican beef exports, worth $1.3 million. So that's a lot of money right there. $1.3 billion. Of course, Mexican third biggest foreign beef supplier, and it's right behind Australia and Canada. And of course, exports reaching 232,000. I think we're going to leap past Canada this year, added Lay. I don't know. It all depends on how much Canada will export their beef. Lay came out and said, I think we're going to leap past Canada this year. Well, let's see what happens, because it's going to be between Canada and Mexico. Mexico boasts nearly 30 federally regulated processing plants of varying sizes, able to process anywhere from 600 to 1,800 cows in 8-hour shift. According to industry data, almost all of them operate only one shift per day and vary in size from just 20 workers to several hundred. So yeah, you can get anywhere from 80 workers to several hundred workers. Of course, they go from anywhere from 600 to 1,800 cows in 8 straight hour shift. In other words, you gotta kill them, cut them up, cut the fat off the beef, everything. So it's a lot of work. In contrast, in the United States, just 4 major beef packing companies, Cargill Inc., Tyson Foods, JBS, and National Beef Packing control more than 80% of the business. Yes, so they do. They only control 80% of it. No more than that. So that's what the United States, just 4 major beef packing companies, Cargill, Tyson, JBS, and Natural Beef Packing. That's all. While much of the beef imported into the United States is used to make hamburgers, most of the beef imported from Mexico is higher end cuts that end up in grocery stores, said Daryl Peel, a livestock marketing specialist at Oklahoma State University. So Mexican beef that are imported from Mexico, there are higher end cuts because you make hamburgers out of them, and it takes a lot of time. Not really, but some time to cook them up. But they're higher beef cuts. The shift towards foreign supplies has angered many U.S. ranchers who argue the consolidation of the meatpacking sector and shuttering of processing plants and limiting access to their own marketplace. So the ranchers are getting really upset about this, um, and because they don't like the idea of imported beef coming from Mexico. They want their own beef, but since Mexico has always been sending it, this is what's angering the U.S. ranchers now. There are about 500,000 cattle here that cannot get to slaughter, said Bill Bullard, Chief Executive Officer of the Ranchers Cattlemen Action Legal Fund, United Stock Growers of America. Yes, so there's like about 500,000 cattle here that cannot be slaughtered because they are afraid of what's going to happen. Um, they're afraid that the people will get sick and everything, but that's not the case because Mexico has always had the riches of their beef, and that's why it's a higher cut. I know guys who have had cattle to sell for 5 weeks and they can't even get a bid, he said. Yeah, well, cattle's being for sale, you can't get a bid for them because nobody wants to buy them at all. Lay, head of Mexico's Beef Exports Association, is sensitive to the complaints. However, he noted Mexico also imports U.S. cuts in what he describes as a very complementary trade that he said was up 6% this year. So yeah, so Lay is head of Mexico's Beef Exporters Association. He's also said, however, he noted Mexico also imports U.S. cuts in what he describes as a very complementary trade. So they trade back and forth between Mexico and the U.S. And of course, it was trade that he said was up 6% this year. So it's slowly getting up there, but not much. Mexican producers' near-term gains are made possible by meatpacking plants that have not experienced the level of C-19 virus outbreaks as their American counterparts. Yeah, so they haven't not experienced at all the level of the C-19 virus outbreaks as their American counterparts. So they don't know what was going on really. To date, no more than 20 processing plant workers across the country have tested positive for the C-19 virus, according to the Cattle Growers Association, and no plants have been closed. All right, so you got 20 plant workers across the country. They have been tested for the C-19 virus, and they tested positive for it. Of course, according to the Cattle Growers Association, and no plants have been closed. So none of the meat plants have shut down whatsoever. They kept them open still, even though 20 workers are tested positive for the C-19 virus. In the United States, Smithfield Foods, owned by China's WH Group, as well as JBS and Tyson Foods, have since April temporarily shut more than a dozen U.S. plants after thousands of workers contracted the virus. So you got Smithfield Foods that are owned by China, which I think they should get the heck out of here, out of the United States. There's also JBS and Tyson Foods as well have since April temporarily shut more than a dozen U.S. plants after thousands of workers contracted the virus. So, I think China should get out of the United States, literally, since they caused all this pandemic stuff. The Mexican government's tally of confirmed C-19 virus infections, currently at more than 38,000 cases, does not include industry specific totals. So, the Mexicans government's tally of confirmed C-19 virus infections, and of course there was 38,000 cases, does not include industry-specific totals. Jose Luis Ordonez, a meatpacking plant manager just outside the city of Culcan, New Mexico's Pacific Coast, points to a series of new measures his 350 workers have adopted since the crisis struck in March. So there was 350 workers they adopted since the crisis struck in March. So it's near the Mexico's Pacific coast. Buses used to transport workers to the plant are now sanitized 4 times daily, up from just once, and run double the daily routes they used to in an effort to boost social distancing among employees. So the buses are now sanitized 4 times daily. So that means morning, afternoon, mid-afternoon, and at nighttime. So that's how they do it. But it all depends on what time they start running their buses there in Mexico. And of course, they used to an effort to boost social distancing among employees and run double daily routes. Workers now clock in at plants using spaced out painted footprints, which are also in locker rooms and cafeterias. In cutting rooms, new plastic barriers have been erected. So now the workers, they got to use spaced out painted footprints, which also in locker rooms as well. So when you go into the locker rooms, you will see the painted spaced out footprints as well. Cutting rooms also has new plastic barriers have been erected, so they use plastic barriers now too. The body temperatures of workers are also checked 3 times a day. So when you go in for work in the morning, you get checked. If you go on lunch break, you're getting checked. When you go back to work, you're getting checked again. So that's 3 times a day that they are checking the temperatures, the body temperatures. And of course, here are the cows that they're having a hard time selling for beef and that. But there's some ranchers that can't do it. All this has helped a lot be able to achieve the results we have until now, said Ordonez, whose plant sells packaged meats under the Santarara band. So that's what it is helping is under the Santara brand. Able to achieve the results we have until now, and this is what Ordonez says. Since March, 3 of his plant's workers who had presented symptoms of C-19 were given tests, all negative, he said. So there were plant workers who had presented symptoms of C-19 and were given tests, and all of them were negative. So nobody had it, even though they're testing their workers, the worker's body temperature 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and before you go home. So, I know it has come down to that, but hey, it's got to be done whether they like it or not, and they got no choice. And of course, it's all around the globe that the body temperatures are going to get checked for the C-19 virus before they could even start working again. Leave your comments below. I am out.